Good evening. I'd like to call the Village Board meeting for the Village of Cary on June 18th, 2024 to order with roll call, please.
Collier.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
Stefani.
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving to the open forum, the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I have two people signed in. Chris? You don't want to say anything? Randall?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, board members. Randall Kohler, 352 Clare Lane. I was here last week in regard to a very serious matter dealing with the Cary Police. No one's gotten back to me since last week, although I was told someone would get back to me, but no one has. I invited everybody on this board to pose any questions to me to give further detail in regard to what the situation might be, because there is a lot more detail to this and it needs to be delved into. I'm here tonight, though, to talk about something that you might be familiar with. It's called catch and kill. Now, typically that works with killing media stories so that people are protected. Tonight, what I'm talking about is catching and killing felony complaints by the police department, because that, in my opinion, is what has happened. Can they do that? Sure they can. And I'm going to share with you how that happened. And this has come about because I've had many discussions with many people, including a person in the SA's office in regard to this particular situation. Well, the way the game is played is that the officer claims to the victim, which is me, that they took all the evidence to the state's attorney. And the state's attorney declared, not enough evidence. This is just a civil case. The problem is, I don't know what was presented to the state's attorney. I wasn't there. Even though I requested multiple times to have a meeting together, conference call together, I wasn't there. I don't know what was said. I don't know what was presented. I'm supposed to trust the officer did diligence with the investigation and provided an honest assessment of the full investigation to the state's attorney for all of the evidence. My recent conversation with a person in the McHenry County State's Attorney's Office confirmed to me that if the Cary Police Department doesn't want to pursue a case, whatever the reason, they will intentionally not provide all of the facts, or it won't be emphasized maybe the way it should be. All Cary officers need to do is intentionally leave out a lot of evidence and facts of the case when presenting it to the individual state's attorney. The recommendation then comes back that the complaint should not be pursued. And a lot of times this is done in a very short phone call. There's no delving into the investigation. There's no delving into the facts. There's no delving into the documentation. It basically just kind of goes on a referral of what the police officer says. Kind of like, well, what do you think? Well, what do you have? And if it's downplayed by the police officer, well, the state's attorney's option is only to do what they know, and they didn't hear enough, so, oh well, not enough there. The claim's out of their hands. Basically, there's plausible denial by the Cary police because they come to me, the victim, and say, oh, well, we consulted with the office. Oh, we did this. Oh, well, you know, they determined there's no crime. That's plausible denial. That's pointing the finger to somebody else for what they didn't do. The claim is in their hands. So then the victim is told, civil case, get a lawyer, case closed. And I was told that a lot. The person that I spoke with out in McHenry County State's Attorney's Office said it is not uncommon for police departments to do that. You know, they just sort of happen to forget to say things. And again, it's typically short conversations. It's short conversations, and many times it's based on the opinion of the police officer. What I did is I provided a summary of the felony violations that I believe were committed to the person in the state's attorney's office. Same thing I gave to the police here.
You know, Mr. Culler, can I ask you, we've heard this before.
No, this is not the same.
Well, my concern is that none of us are read into any of that. We found out very briefly after your meeting last, we had no idea you spoke on uncertainties. We had no idea what you were talking about. We have an understanding of what it's about right now.
I'm trying to get it on public record because this
It is on public record, and your best course of action is to sit. We invited you to come into the village of Cary, and we would sit down and have a discussion with you.
I was not invited in the last 2 weeks.
The last board meeting, we invited you to come in and sit down and talk with us. We would make ourselves available.
You said, Mark, you said somebody will get back to me, and they didn't.
Well, I'm asking you to come in and discuss this because there's nothing that's going to be taken care of this evening. This is public comment. We can't comment on any of these things. I would rather take action on things if we had a meeting where we can discuss all the facts. I don't have all the facts, so therefore I can't make an educated comment about this.
I'm not asking you to comment. I'm asking you for me to let me speak freely about it.
I do, and we have a 3-minute public comment policy. You're into the 5th minute. If you want to wrap it up, that would be appreciated.
I will. So, you know, was this done intentionally? I don't know. I went through and I looked at 8 possible different things that could cause this. One is that they don't have the experience. They don't know. The other is, well, maybe the budget isn't right, but we got this beautiful building, there must be budget. The other is maybe they want to keep the village crime statistics low. Or maybe they want to keep the underwriters happy because home repair fraud and storm chasers tend to raise everybody's insurance rates in this village. Or maybe it's just too much work to do a full investigation. The DA's office did say when they looked at what I provided to here and to them, they did say there's a lot there, and there is a lot there. There's a lot to delve into. There's a lot of detail. You're right, there is, and it needs to be delved into. But one of the last things that's really most interesting to me is that one of the individuals who is the person of interest, okay, boasted to me that they know a lot of influential people here in Cary, and they live in Cary. So the question to me is there conflict of interest here? It's a question. And that maybe is something that should be further looked into, because I'll tell you what, there is a boatload of documentation and evidence that is not being pursued. Please, anybody on the board, I will, you know what, I'll email this, and I'll email what I sent to
Like I said,
the State
please
Department.
contact Village Hall. We will set up a meeting and have the parties that can help you understand what's going on, and we can have a discussion. We can't have a discussion about this right now. I understand your frustration, but we've invited you to come in before. Please come in and have a discussion.
I'm going to keep coming back for my 3 minutes until this is addressed.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the village board? None said. We'll close open forum at 6:09. A few things I might report this evening. We have some employee recognition. Julie from the police department has been with the village of Cary for 5 years. She's unable to be here. The chief has a small token of our appreciation for her as well as Matthew from the public works department. He's just finished his 5-year anniversary with the village of Cary. Again, we have a small token of our appreciation for him as well. And finally, Stuart Hoffman one of our youngest and newer employees, have just celebrated his first-year anniversary. So we wish them luck and continued enjoyment with the Village of Cary. Moving on to consent agenda, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G as shown on the village's website and is displayed on the video monitor during the village board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Stefani?
Yes.
Collier?
Yes.
Walrath?
Yes.
That's quick. 4 people, it goes quicker. Moving on to items for separate action. I will entertain a motion to approve an ordinance granting a 5-year extension to an ordinance suspending certain fees for the construction of new single-family detached dwelling units within the Village of Cary.
So moved.
Second.
Was there any other further discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Stefani?
Yes.
Walrath?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Collier?
Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve an ordinance amending Appendix A, fees, rates, penalties, and fines of the Cary Municipal Code pertaining to updates to the Village of Cary's building permit fees.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on this matter? None said. Roll call, please.
Walrath?
Yes.
Collier?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Stefani?
Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution entering into an incentive agreement with All for Canine Incorporated and utilizing the Village of Cary's facade improvement and interior build-out grant program for the property located at 15 South 2nd Street.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor, Village Board. The request this evening before the board is for a business which is currently located within downtown, is in the process of relocating to a new facility on 15 South 2nd Street. As the board will recall, the petitioner did receive approval for zoning entitlements regarding the property for some exterior improvements and also interior renovations to the building. They're in the process of starting that work, which includes an addition of additional parking along 2nd Street for the business, which the parking improvements have not started as of yet. With the implementation of the TIF and the facade improvement program, they have submitted an application related to that work, seeking assistance with the improvements along 2nd Street for the parking lot. The total improvements would cost around $40,000 for the additional paved parking spaces and sidewalk work that would be performed. So they're requesting the maximum amount from the grant, a matching grant of $10,000, which is about 25% of the project or the project costs. The interior improvements would be additional costs to that, which are not part of the application as presented. The owner of the business is here as well if there are any questions that the board may have, but staff is recommending support of the requested
Thanks.
amount.
Is the petitioner here? Would you like to come up here, please? You just state your name and address for the record.
My personal address or?
Your business address.
Okay. Angela Lullo. I'm the owner of All for Canine, currently located at 212 West Main Street in Cary.
Thanks. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the project and what you're trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, so we're actually going on 3 years of trying to get this going. I bought the building in July of 2021. We are currently working on the interior build-out. My contractor said they should be done around the end of July. And then with moving the business here, it was told that I needed to add the additional parking in order to operate out of there. So in order to get the how much parking we needed, we had to add the row of parking spaces in front of the building. So that's what this application is for, so that we can add that parking, so that we can get open and get moving.
Great. Love to hear that. Does the board have any questions for the petitioner? This is exactly what this facade improvement grant, interior build-out grant is for, and I'm thrilled that you're able to participate in this.
Thank you.
A little patience probably worked off on your behalf here, so that's good. And you have a thriving business, and we look forward to you continuing to grow your business in the Village of Cary.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Collier?
Yes.
Stefani?
Yes.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Walrath?
Yes.
You got your grant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board.
Brian will be in touch with you.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. One more item on my, on the items for separate action. I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution entering into an incentive agreement with Ridgefield Homes LLC in the amount not to exceed $37,997 for public infrastructure improvements to the property located at 106 through 124 East Main Street.
So move.
Second.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor, Village Board. This request, as the board will recall, was previously discussed back in March for various improvements related to the proposed Ridgefield Landing project, which is currently under construction. The discussion by the Village Board back in March was concerned with the improvements that were presented as part of the financial request at that time. Were related to what was approved by the board prior to the establishment of the TIF district versus what the cost had increased from that time period. So the developer has gone back and revised the request based on the discussion to lower the request to reflect the actual costs that they've incurred due to conditions that have occurred since their original zoning entitlements for the project. So the request before the board this evening is for the increase in costs related to the curb replacement along Route 14 that IDOT required as part of their permitting. They've subtracted out the existing driveway entrances that were located on that frontage roadway from, as those were improvements that would typically or would previously had been performed. So that decreased that line item from roughly just under $50,000 to $35,000. And then also reduced or is only requesting for the increased cost related to installing larger trees in the parkway. So our code requires 2.5-inch diameter trees to be installed at installation. They're proposing to upsize those to 3.5-inch trees so they're more mature at the when the project is completed and will complete the streetscape, and just asking for the difference between the cost of a 2.5-inch versus a 3.5-inch caliber tree. So with the request, if the board is supportive of it, we'll draft the final agreement for approval with the developer. But essentially, this revision is, I believe, in following what the previous discussion was before the board back in March. Developers here to provide answer any questions that the board may have as well, and as is staff.
Mr. Dooley, would you like to come up to the microphone, please? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Jay Dula, 903 Lakewood Drive in Barrington.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Just a comment on, and thank you for submitting a revised request. We appreciate working with you.
Yeah, I misunderstood the original concept to begin with, so.
Right.
The only, and it's really not more of a question for you, it's just more of a comment. This project was signed on before the TIF district even happened, and to use TIF funds for something that was already in motion is, I have a hard time saying yes to this, because when I look at the TIF funds, that's more for bringing new business, enhancing businesses that are around that particular district. Seeing this, and it's a project in motion, I just have a hard time saying yes to, hey, we're gonna cut a check for $38,000 for something that's really not new business that we should be spending the TIF money on. So I just wanna put that out there.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick comment?
Sure.
Or have maybe Brian comment on this? I think something in our packet indicated what we're proposing, the tax increase in the base with this development. Was it like 7, 9? I can't remember. It was quite a bit of money. Do you remember how much it was that we were thinking tax dollars would be increased?
Yeah, so for this project, since the village previously owned the property, when the TIF was established, this property came on the public record. So all the revenue that this site is generating is going towards the TIF. So year one of the TIF, this site's generating about just under $6,000. The individual units, through discussion the developers had with the township, as far as what the property would be assessed at, each individual unit is probably going to generate around $8,000 to $9,000 of taxes individually. So on an annual basis, the site will generate between $80,000 to $90,000 of revenue towards the TIF.
Okay.
And only to the TIF, correct?
Only to the TIF until the TIF expires, and then all the, correct.
Right, so you look at that over the life of it, and I think that it came up with a pretty hefty, was it 8 million? Eric, do you remember, Director Mormon, do you remember? I
The
mean,
total revenue that this site would
subtracting.
generate over the 23 years of the TIF was close to $2 million.
Okay. So my comment on this, I do appreciate you going back and kind of listening to what we said, because I think you got that impression. We're like, hey, we're not comfortable with just saying, here's where we're at. I think that some of us even talked about, boy, if you have this much of an increase, you have this many units, you just need to increase the price of the unit by 3,000, 5,000, 8,000, whatever that amount would have been. I'm assuming that you kind of looked at that and you're looking at your price point and feeling like, here's your maximum. I mean, help me out with how you came up with, I just want to get a good understanding so that
Okay,
we can
okay,
make a
so-
good decision.
So for a couple things. Number one is, as the trustee indicated here, the project was approved, and, but the project was approved back in whenever that was, February, March, and the only requirement was to remove about 40 feet of curb along Route 14. It took me 9 months to get a permit from IDOT, and IDOT's position was the whole curb all along 14 is in such bad shape here that for us to give you a permit, we want you to completely remove and replace the entire curb that had the frontage along Route 14. So obviously, I was expecting, as the numbers indicate, I was expecting about $10,000 maybe worth of curb repair and end up with $50,000 worth of curb remove and replacement. Also, just from a standpoint of, I'm sure anybody that's experienced new construction or construction rehab, you always end up with costs that you never anticipated. ComEd, I can tell you, I wasn't expecting to pay anything for ComEd service. It cost me it's gonna cost about $25,000 just to be able to provide electrical service to the 10 units that are being built. You know, and that's just a part of all of the various, increases that you have in construction. Unknowns that you find in the ground where when the village tore those existing houses down, the soils weren't compact properly, and now you end up with a lot of extra costs that you have associated with that. So I have looked at all the costs. I've looked at all the overruns associated with, dealing with developing a small piece of property for 10 units. And this is, this is definitely a cost overrun that was not anticipated whatsoever. And it does have a big impact on the project. And I'm already pushing the sales prices way higher than I was originally hoping it to be at.
What do you think you're pushing the sale prices at, if I may ask?
I think that we'll be at like 400,000 at this point in time, to be totally honest with you. Yep.
Okay. Okay, I mean, and I am familiar with, new construction and contingencies and things like that. That's why a lot of builders have a contingency. Even if someone's doing an independent home, they have to have a contingency set up because there are gonna be overruns and things like that. The public landscaping, so we're saying that it's costing you $2,400 more than what you thought it was gonna cost you?
No, all I said was, I can go back and put in the 2.5-inch trees, and as opposed to the 3.5-inch trees. All I was basically trying to do was create a more mature look
Okay.
for as you're driving into the village. That's all I was trying to do there. If you'd say, hey, we're happy with the 2.5-inch trees, then then take the $2,400 off, and I'll just put in the 2.5-inch trees. All I was trying to do was make it appear to be
More
a
mature.
more established, mature community. That's it.
And is there, I'm gonna go back to now, you guys, to, you two directors over here and say, is there a benefit to having a 3.5 diameter versus a 2.5 diameter trees?
From a health standpoint, with installing the trees, it doesn't make a difference if it's a 2.5 versus a 3.5. You can certainly install the trees at that diameter. As you get larger than that, then it starts to impact the health of the tree more. But from a size perspective, obviously a 3.5-inch tree has had more time to establish itself and grow, so it's going to have a larger tree canopy than a smaller tree would. It would be a more, more substantial tree that would be installed as opposed to an extra inch caliper diameter tree has had I don't know how many years extra growth time it would be on it, but it would be a larger tree that would, establish more of a tree canopy in that area quicker.
Okay. Those are my questions for now. Anyone else have questions?
If the TIF didn't exist, would we be able to flip a bill for $38,000?
But it does exist.
I understand that, but I'm saying if the TIF did not exist, would we be able to cover it?
Well, I think that, I understand what your comment is, but this is the value of having a new development in a TIF district. I'm on the fence when it comes to the tree, $2,400 for the tree. That really wasn't not a big deal breaker for me, but I understand dealing with IDOT. We deal with this with other projects that have pushed us to the curb, like Thornton's, for instance. That pushed a lot of the other issues that we've had over there with trying to get permits. And I have actually sat down with the director of IDOT talking about this, and I used this particular development this spring about the cumbersomeness of getting permits from IDOT for curb cuts and that. It just sets development back and it rises the cost. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Dula came back with the costs that the board asked him to come back with, which was the additional cost incurred by what IDOT was already demanding that he do. I don't know if that would have been a deal killer for him. That's something we'll probably never know. But I believe that the use of the funding for the curb replacement is a just use for the TIF fund. I'm on the fence. I'll go with whatever the board decides on the landscaping. I don't know if a 3.5-inch tree is worth it. Save us $2,400 to keep that in there. It's your call.
I'm not for the I'm not for the landscaping. I know it sounds really silly, but I'm like, if we're using the TIF and we're using it for what it's made to do, I just can't justify saying that we should spend. If you want to put them in and just have a cost of $2,400 more, I'm fine with that.
I'll just
But
put the 2.5
that's just
inch.
my humble opinion.
That's fine with me.
Any further comments, Trustee Walworth?
Sell 4 of them and nobody will have a problem.
No, I'm happy with what you came back with.
Okay. Where do we want to go with, do you want to remove the public landscaping for the 2397, or do you want to amend the motion to exclude that?
I'm content with it in there.
Okay. We'll see how this goes then. Roll call?
McAlpine?
No.
Collier?
Yes.
Walrath?
Yes.
Stefani?
No.
Count.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to administrator support.
Nothing further this evening, sorry.
Department heads, Chief Finland,
I have nothing, thank you.
Director Noonan.
Just want to say thanks for everybody who came out to the Public Works Open House. It was a great event in conjunction with the firearms range there. And for the public, be on the lookout for another open house this fall where we're going to highlight the water and wastewater divisions of Public Works.
It was great. It was well attended. I was
well.
surprised at how many people actually showed up out there. It was really fun.
It was very well, yeah.
You did a great job, and the facility looked awesome. I know you just cleaned it up for it, but
Thank you.
But no, it looked good. And it was nice to see a bunch of the guys hanging out there too, talking with the residents. It was very well received.
The kids love the keychains. Those were a hit. The little keychains.
Those are homemade by Steve Kopaz.
Love it.
Did he make those?
He has a 3D printer that he makes them on, yeah.
Wow.
So on his own time, he brings those in for us.
And they glow in the dark. That's
Yep.
cool.
They're very cool.
Apparently, I did have something to say. And that is that we have a National Night Out. It'll be August 8th here at 6:30. A lot of events and presentations, and it'll culminate with, right now, a fireworks display at 9:15.
Nice.
Looking forward to that. It's already on my calendar. It's good. And that's on a Thursday night this year, right?
Yes.
Director Simmons, you got anything for us? Thank you. Any future agenda items and discussion by the village board? Unsaid, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:30.